Hello and welcome to another very special edition of Capcom Confidential.
I'd say this is indeed very special. I'm excited about this one, Pete.
Me too, Matt. And I guess we should start by introducing each other.
Okay, well, this is Pete Fabiano in front of me.
On front of me, yes.
On front of me.
And this is Matt Walker on front of me.
That's right, or in front of you.
Yes, either way.
Both.
Okay, well, as always, we open by saying thank you for listening. Please tell your friends, continue to subscribe, or subscribe if you don't. And we have a very, very special guest today.
That's right. What does our guest do, Pete?
Are we going to open with that? We're not going to say who he is?
No.
They've already figured it out because it's probably on the web. But anyway,
that's true.
Our special guest today is none other than Reuben Langdon.
That's right.
Actor.
Performer.
Mocap guy.
Hey guys, glad to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cool.
Thanks for actually coming all the way out. That's awesome.
Yeah, right.
Awesome
All the way to Osaka.
Well, it was coincidentally I was in Kyoto doing some sightseeing and seeing the koyo, the autumn foliage, and I told Itsuno-san, "Hey, can I stop by on Tuesday?" And he's like, "Yeah, and by the way, we're gonna do this interview thing and all this other stuff." I'm like, "Oh, sure,
yeah, you should definitely stop by." Oh, by the way, there's all this stuff you got to do with us now.
all the more merrier.
Sweet.
So glad to be here. Thanks.
Sweet.
Thanks for having me.
How was Kyoto? Was it pretty cool?
Oh my God, it was my first time being there in the fall, and that is by the most amazing, beautiful time to be there. I was there about a year and a half ago for the cherry blossoms. That was great. Amazing, but the fall colors are just absolutely just off the charts. Yeah,
it's a great thing. And yeah, in November's the perfect time for that, right?
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, I kind of was timing this trip for that.
Sweet.
Yeah. Didn't realize it was gonna be so crowded. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. A ton of people go, right?
Ton of people, and then they jack the prices of the hotels way up, and you have to deal with that. But it's worth it. It's worth it.
No, definitely.
It's amazing.
I used to live in Tokyo, and so I moved out to Osaka, and I'm like, sweet, I get to go to Kyoto a lot more now. My wife never wants to go to Kyoto because there's so many people for that kind of thing.
Yeah, but if you can find that period to navigate in there, get over there. It's amazing.
Sweet, man.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It's gorgeous.
You know.
Well, having you here, we definitely want to dig into your past, and I know you have a very long past with Capcom, but also, first of all, where were you born? Where did you grow up? I mean, I've known you for some years. I don't think I've ever asked you that question.
I was born in Alaska.
No kidding.
My dad was in the service and then was stationed there, got out, and my parents lived there for 18 years. But at a young age, I think just like preschool or something, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
And then spent most of my adolescent years there. And at the age of 19, bought a ticket, one-way ticket to Japan, and ended up staying here for 5 years at the time.
So wait, all the way from preschool through the age of 19, then you were in Georgia that whole time?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you went to school there?
Yeah, high school, junior high, elementary. I did take 1 year. My parents decided to move to the the West Coast, to California for a year.
Right.
And that was fun for me as a kid, but for them it didn't work out, and then they moved right back after a year. So I had 1 year of elementary school in California.
Okay.
And yeah, the rest of the time was all in Atlanta.
What was school like for you though? I mean, like, you're a performer now. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? How did you gain interest in being a performer? I'm assuming maybe it had something to do with school, that it was completely different.
For most kids, yeah, they enroll in drama class and performing arts, that kind of thing. I was the absolute opposite. I hated being in front of anybody, like on the stage or performing. That was the last thing on my mind. I did not want to do that. I felt embarrassed for the people who would go up. I'd be in the stage or in the audience, and the people who'd be in front of everybody, I was embarrassed for them.
Right.
And it wasn't until I moved to Japan and I was working as an English teacher, working on an army base as a part-time job, and just trying to make money and figure out how to make ends meet while living in Japan.
What compelled you to just pick up at 19 buy a plane ticket and
Right.
fly to Japan.
Japan of all
That
places.
seems like
Well, it was very thought out.
Okay.
You know, I was a huge otaku, a huge fan of games, anime, um, from early on, way back, and from elementary school. Believe it or not, I you know, have the mutual. Itsuno-san and I have the mutual Macross Robotech fandom thing going, and I from uh, elementary school when that show came on, that was like my favorite show. I religiously would rush home from school to catch Robotech.
oh, you had it in the afternoon.
We had it in the afternoon. Yeah.
For us, it was like 6 a.m.
6 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would have been early '80s, right? Early to
Yeah.
mid '80s, I
Yeah.
think, something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Macross thing was, it was just for me. It was so different than all the other shows. You know, when Roy Fokker died, right? That was what? How does it? Okay. he'll be back.
Spoilers.
Yeah. But when he died, I think I actually cried. You know, at that time, being a kid.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
having
I
this
could
emotional
see that.
attachment to this anime, which, you know, not many cartoons at that age.
Definitely.
You're watching Tom and Jerry or
Right.
Bugs Bunny,
Yep,
and
yep.
you're not really getting that kind of in-depth storytelling. Characters die, they come back to life, right?
Right.
And super, you know, Marvel superheroes and that kind of thing. So I was very attached to that show, and then when I found out it was from Japan, and I was just kind of perplexed and wanted to know more, and
Right.
the more I investigated, the more I found out all my favorite shows, even from like preschool, when I used to watch Star Blazers.
Yes, I was just going to ask you about that. That was my
Transor
favorite.
Z.
I think it was like
Cool.
4.
Right,
Yeah.
and Transor Z, and
Right.
these other, which, you know, Mazinger Zetto, and Battle of the Planets,
Right,
which
right.
was
Gatchaman. Yep.
So all of these shows that I loved and that stood out for me as a kid, I found out they were all from Japan. And at that time, Japanimation it wasn't anime yet. It was Japanimation.
Yep.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly.
So I was just getting into Japanimation. I was like, oh, I got to get more of this stuff. And I would go to Comic Cons and Star Trek conventions before Comic Con became a thing. It was more Star Trek centralized. And people had booths, and they would sell bootleg VHS tapes
Yep.
of different anime from Japan.
I remember.
And my first VHS tape I bought was Macross the movie.
Okay.
In Japanese, no subtitles.
Right, right.
I got home and I think I wore that tape off.
Okay.
I would watch an episode of Robotech, and then I'd follow with watching the full Macross movie
Cool.
every day.
Right.
Every
okay.
day I would do
And
that
you didn't
ritual.
understand Japanese, right? But
No.
and there were no subtitles, so
There were no subtitles. I just would watch it and just,
Right.
I think that subliminally helped my Japanese.
Okay.
You know, when
Yeah.
later when I decided to learn, that I eventually, when I did start picking up Japanese, then it got just sort of just by you know, just that exposure of watching
Sure.
Macross over and over. So yeah, when I found out that everything I loved was from Japan, including, you know, the games and
Right.
the at that time the Super Nintendo or Nintendo, Super Nintendo, what is it, 16-bit, was it Sega Genesis, right?
Right, right.
All of these other things, I just immersed myself fully into that. So I knew I was going to go to Japan someday.
Right on.
I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? And I didn't really have the money or the grades to do an exchange student thing.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure out alternate plans. I graduated from high school and saved up money, worked for a year, saved up some money, and then got a ticket and arrived.
So no plan, like nothing. You're
Not
just, I'm
really
there.
Yeah, I didn't really know what I was
Okay.
going to do when I got here. I just knew I had to get here. So I got here, and the only, I did have a contact from a guy who worked at an army base, and
Okay.
the Camp Zama army base it's kind of near Tokyo. It's in Kanagawa Prefecture. I did have his card, so when I arrived, I called him, and he said, "Come on out to."
That was nice of him.
Yeah, actually, I arrived. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was at the airport. I think I stayed 2 nights at the airport, just trying to decide what to do, because I didn't realize it was going to be so Japanese.
Came to Japan. Oh my God, it's so Japanese
Yeah,
here.
and people speak Japanese here.
Right, yeah, well, especially because when I remember walking down into the train station, and this was before. Now everything's with Romaji in English,
Right.
right? But this was 1994, so the train station was just this crazy web of dots and lines connecting, and it was all with kanji, and there was no English or Romaji at the time, or only on key big stations. And I just looked at that thing. I got really dizzy. And I went up to the airport and I sat down. I'm like, what am I going to do now?
What have I
No
done?
And then I thought about it. I thought, I'd call my mom. And she's like, yeah, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm going to call that army guy because this is crazy.
Amazing. And you literally stayed at the airport for 2 nights then?
Yeah.
Like, did you at least stay at a hotel, or were you like literally in the airport terminal?
I stayed in the terminal.
No kidding.
I slept on the benches, and that night the security guys would come up to me and say, what are you doing? Let me see your passport.
Okay.
I don't know what they were saying at the time. I was like, oh yeah, passport, yeah, here.
So they just checked it. They're like,
Yeah.
all right, he's got a valid passport.
Yeah.
He can stay here. Just let him sleep on the bench.
So I just like
The olden days.
not these days, but yeah, I remember 2 nights. I think the morning of the next night, I was like, okay, I really need to do something here. That's when I called the guy, and he said, okay, yeah, there's a bus leaving from the airport, straight to Camp Zama. Get on the bus.
Oh, wow, nice.
I'll call it in, get you on, and he arranged it. So I ended up going straight to Camp Zama, and he was the head of the base. He was like the main. I forget. He was a civilian status, but whatever that military grade, whatever. He was like the head civilian running the base. So right away he was like, hey, you want a job? You want to get your visa? You want to do all that? I'm like, yeah. So he hooked it all up. Like within 2 days, I was working in a warehouse for minimum wage.
Wow.
But
But you had a job.
But I had a job.
Yeah.
I got they call it SOFA status.
Okay.
So if
What's
you're
that?
military related, you get a stamp on your passport that's basically indefinite as long as you're working.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And
Very nice.
I had
Yeah.
that, and yeah, you guys probably know all the trouble they go
Yeah.
through immigration and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There. So that made me legal. I was able to stay, and I was like, cool, sweet.
Cool.
And then my adventures began, and I got into acting and modeling through needing to pay the bills, right?
Makes sense.
funds.
Makes sense.
So a lot of people at the base said, well, hey, you can go register as a gaijin talento.
Right.
They're looking for sometimes models and American models and stuff. And at that time, it was a little easier to get a job than it is these days. But I said, okay, whatever I can do to pay the bills, because working for minimum wage, having to live off base and pay the bills, and getting paid in US dollars and at that time the exchange rate was really bad. So I said, yeah, I will do whatever I can to pay the bills. And I did. I went and registered, started booking jobs. At first was terrified.
I reckon. Well,
Yeah,
you don't really
especially
speak
because
Japanese, you
yeah,
know?
not only that, he was saying how shy he was.
Yeah, I was
actually.
very shy.
Yeah, that's
and
true,
I just
yeah,
was
yeah.
like an otaku gamer / manga reader guy, and I
Right.
didn't really like being in front of people. And then slowly got used to it more and more, and then finally I booked a job. I booked a role, the role of Mac Wendy on the Sentai series or the Tokusatsu series, B Fighter Capital, which was a Toei kind of transformation show,
Okay.
like the Power
Right.
Rangers kind of thing.
Power Rangers, yeah.
And then I had lines. I had to learn lines in Japanese and transform and
Wow.
do all this stuff, and that was fun, and I was
Right.
really getting into it. And I had started action school and acting classes in Japanese
Okay.
just prior to that, so it was all just like one thing after another, and get in front of the camera, and that was then by that time I was very comfortable and just liking to do that. Wanted to be in front of the camera more, doing
Right.
more acting and doing more physical action and stunt stuff.
Right.
I was a huge Jackie Chan fan, so my anime and manga sort of turned into more of a Hong Kong action and
Cool.
that kind of going that direction, but still encompassing it all. So samurais, ninjas, and all that kung fu and just like all of that stuff was
That's cool.
big. So that
level of mysticism. Kind
Right.
of.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I just wanted. I was like, that guy's amazing. I want to do what that guy can do. And I didn't have a martial arts background.
Right.
But I was living in Japan, and there's martial arts everywhere. So I started training pretty hardcore with a lot of the action schools and other martial arts, Aikido and Jikundo and.
So about how old are you now? Like at this point, you went over at 19.
Yeah.
Now you've gone from working in a warehouse to being on TV. About what age are you here?
I'm 43 now.
Oh no, sorry, at the time.
Oh, at the time.
Yeah.
2021 ish. I think
Okay.
21.
So only
About
2
a year or
years,
two.
and you had
Yeah.
already kind of skyrocketed.
My 21st birthday was my first day of shooting on B Fighter.
Cool.
So, and then it was sort of a marker point in my life because I remember being on set, it being my birthday, and sort of reminiscing on
Right.
that, and transforming, delivering lines, fighting bad guys in monster suits, right, and transforming into my own super suit thing, whatever. And I was like, this is amazing. I want to do this the rest of my life.
Right. Right.
And believe it or not, to some extent, I've sort of been doing that.
Yeah.
It's shifted now into
Right.
the mocap world, but I'm still wearing some sort of tights and some
That's
sort of
true.
suit, right?
Yeah, and for those that
mocap
can't
suit.
see him
Mocap
right
suit.
now, he's actually wearing the Dante costume
right.
from 4, right?
That's right.
It's a little more comfortable to wear the mocap suits than those big rubber suits.
Right, right.
And less, it's not as hot, but it's still a suit of sorts, and doing that, here 20 years later, 20 plus years later,
Yep.
so some things never change. So at that time, that 21st birthday, I sort of set my intention, and here we are 20 years later doing the same thing.
That's amazing, man.
That is awesome. That's an
Right?
awesome story.
And I thought you kind of like knew quite a bit about martial arts and stuff, but it never occurred to me that like, okay, that didn't come until the action school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, until the action schools was just really where I got all the skills I have now. It's super grateful for my experiences in Japan, and it's great now because I'm sort of back in Japan,
Right.
first time in almost 20 years.
Has it been that long?
Well, I mean, not. I've come and gone,
Sure.
but usually just for brief for
Right,
work or
right,
something,
right.
and
Because
then
you've
gone
come to
back.
visit and
But I'm
whatnot.
kind of living here now, and I've touched base with a lot of the old action schools and my old action buddies who gave me, taught
Oh,
me this
nice.
stuff. And
That's
gave me the
awesome.
That's
skills.
super cool.
And I'm able to sort of thank them in person before, we'd chat or something, but I'm able to sort of hang out and say, hey guys, I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for your trusting in me and taking the time and teaching me and all that stuff.
Well, I think it's amazing that you just basically picked up and decided to leave your life back home in, I guess it was Georgia at the time,
Georgia, yeah.
and then come here with basically just
Living
on a
on a
whim.
plan.
And not
Yeah.
a whim, I shouldn't say that. You actually had planned. That's what you
It was
wanted to
planned
do.
out, yeah.
But it was like you had no backup plan. It was just something you did. I think that
Yeah.
takes a lot of courage. So that's pretty
It
or
was-
passion.
It was scary. It was scary.
Right.
And but being sort of as naive at that age, I probably, if I'd gone to other places, I may have not have survived as well or gotten along as well. But Japan being such a
Amen.
open culture and nice and friendly to foreigners, I really, they took me in. I had my friends that I made at Camp Zama, Japanese natives who worked on the base as sort of, that was their, assisting the military operations there. They really took me in, and they saw that I wanted to be here. They saw it was sort of different than a lot of the soldiers, that they were just there for their jobs, where I was like this young kid who
Right.
wanted to be
Right,
here, and I was
right.
eager to learn the language. And I think Japanese have a big heart for people who are
Sure.
doing that.
Interested in
And they sort of like, wow, this guy's really trying to learn our language and our culture.
Right.
And these other guys aren't really doing that. So,
Right.
yeah, let's take them in and show them the ropes.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I know I've had plenty of random experiences too, where it's just like, just dealing with Japanese people, and like, as soon as they see, they're like, oh, this person's here because he wants to be here.
Yeah.
They're just so friendly. They're so, open-minded, and like you said, like they welcome you with open arms.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
It's-
and not too many cultures are like that. So I I'm just grateful. I think that's the reason I'm able to sort of have this grand story to tell is because it's Japan.
Yeah.
If it was another country, I probably would have, been robbed and beaten.
Oh, definitely in the States, anyways. Yeah, especially if it's like New York.
Right. And
What? No. Well, maybe in the 80s.
Yeah.
Times Square in the 80s.
And then sent back to Atlanta and like I tried and it didn't work and whatever. But no, it was really cool to have those people.
So how did you go from that to games?
Yeah, so that story, I just being fascinated with Jackie Chan, Hong Kong action, and training with the Japanese stunt teams and action clubs. I and after the B fighter role, I really wanted more of that type of physical role, which I wasn't getting.
Stunt type role.
Yeah. In
What were you getting?
Well, in Japan at that time, I thought, wow, this is it. B fighter Kabuto. I'm gonna, this is gonna set the new standard, and here we go, off to a new start. And because there weren't that many gaijin on TV or in dramatic roles and acting roles in Japan at that time. So I thought this was gonna be, break the ice, and here we go. It sort of had its run, and then it was over. And then I'm like, okay, when's the next one gonna come? And I kept training with the stunt teams, and my skills were, slowly improving, getting better and better. And after 4 years, I was just making a living by doing commercials and modeling work,
Makes sense.
and I could float just doing that, but I still wasn't getting the role. So continuing to watch Hong Kong movies and, admiring Jet Li, Jackie Chan, and Sammo Hung and these guys, I thought, well, maybe I should give it a shot in Hong Kong. It's not that far from Japan, and to go back to the States, there's just too much competition, and it's just not going to work. So let's just go to Hong Kong. So I bought a ticket, went to Hong Kong, and I had some friends in the Japanese stunt community, already working in Hong Kong, or sort of back and forth, or had some connections through that. So I sort of used those connections to open the door there. Who now actually just last weekend, Kenji Tanigaki, who just got an award an action directing award in Taiwan.
Oh, wow.
He's been Donnie Yen's main sort of action director, and he was his helper even at that time in 96, or 97, I think. Yeah, 97. He was working with Donnie, and I got an introduction to him, and he said, "Yeah, come hang out, and we'll you can meet Donnie, and we're just editing his movie." And so it was kind of cool. Right away, I got off the plane, went straight to the studio, and got to hang out with Donnie Yen. And
that's awesome.
They were editing his movie at the time. I think it was called The New Big Boss. Kind of a little bit
plan.
Or Legend of the Wolf. I think in Japan it came out as The New Big Boss. And Legend of the Wolf in Hong Kong. And at that time, Donnie was still kind of a minor actor. He wasn't as big as he was now, or he is now. And then I ended up meeting Sammo Hung's son.
Cool.
And then he introduced me to Sammo, and then Sammo introduced me to Jackie, and then I ended up working.
That is so sweet.
Working with all of those guys, and worked on a film with Andy Lau, and like all of these big Hong Kong actors. I'm like in the middle of them doing this thing now.
That's amazing.
Wow. And,
what kind of roles would you get in that? Were those mainly like, kind of like stuntman roles?
Yeah.
Or like,
most of those were just, they needed a foreigner to beat up.
Of course. Of course. Right. You're the thug. Like, right.
I would show up and, get a punch in the face or kicked. And I could take a few punches and kicks because of my action training in Japan.
Right.
Oh, cool. All right. This guy we can throw him around a little bit. Let's have fun with that.
What was that? There was a Jackie Chan film in the late 90s where they kind of brought it to the theaters in the States. Like
Project. Oh no,
Brooklyn?
Rumble in the Bronx.
Rumble in the Bronx. Were you
it.
in that?
No.
Okay.
That was right after that movie really inspired me. I was like, oh, I gotta meet Jackie Chan.
Okay.
That was about the time when I went to Hong Kong.
Okay.
I saw that in the theater.
Me too. I saw it in the
awesome,
theater too. But of course, and the reason I thought about that is because like clearly they did not film that in New York, right?
Right.
Yeah, it is not the Bronx.
And it's like clearly like Jackie Chan's like, and like, the the guys that he's beating up, like
Right.
you said, like they don't look like Hollywood,
Right. Thugs.
double, like
Yeah.
whatever. What's the word? What's the word for
Stunt double?
Stunt guys or
yeah,
something.
like stunt guy, yeah, stuntman. Or
They're-
I was actually thinking of like something that's a little more.
They were mostly
can't remember the word.
Jackie's team, but dressed up, with
Right.
some of them had like Indian outfits. And
Right.
it was really all over the place. But that action, I was just watching an action scene from that the other day
Really?
for reference, and it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Jackie
You know?
in his prime was just doing amazing stuff, and I was so grateful to work on a couple projects. I worked on helped out behind the scenes a little bit with what's it called, Jackie Chan, My Stunts, where he's sort of explaining how to do the stunts behind the scenes.
Oh,
Amazing.
cool.
And I got to be on set for that, and then later I got closer with Samo and Samo's son, and Samo invited me to work on the film Medallion, and I was part of Samo's team, and doubling the main bad guy, so I got to fight Jackie Chan as the bad guy double, but also I had a little small role where I was
Neat.
playing Jackie as part of these other groups. So it was yeah. So all
Nice.
of that kind of it was. I'm so grateful I went to Hong Kong, and then after Hong Kong, again, looking for better roles, more things to do. In the Hong Kong, the handover back to China just happened in '97.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And at that time, a lot of people were uncertain what's going to happen with China and the whole takeover. So a lot of these cats, Jackie, Jet Li, Samo, were all slowly migrating to the States
Right.
to do projects, and that's when they were starting to get popular. And Samo had this TV show, Martial Law.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I remember that.
So that and I got to be. I actually got my union card from working on that show.
Right
Oh,
on,
no way.
right on.
Cool.
And Samo put me in a couple episodes. That was fun.
Oh man, do you need to be on a project to get a union card? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. You have to, in order to get in the union, you have to work on a union job, but you can't work in the union unless you have a union
Right,
card.
right.
So it's
Right.
kind of, they make it very complicated and difficult for that. But luckily, Samo was there. I was friends with him, and he was able to get me in. There's different systems. They call it Taft-Hartley, where if you have a special skill that they can't find somebody or something, or a look, and they really want you, then the production can pay a little fine or a little extra money to the union, and then you can get.
Okay.
Then you become SAG eligible.
And that's your
Yeah.
in.
That's sort of your
Okay.
in. And once you're eligible, you just pay your dues and
Sure,
Right.
get in the door. So yeah, it was kind of cool to have those connections and get me in. And then I started working on Power Rangers in the States.
What year was that?
It was in '99. So
Okay.
I was sort of working martial law, Power Rangers, and then I worked '99, 2000, 2001, 3 years on Power Rangers in the States.
Cool, man.
And that was mostly as a stunt guy, but doubling some of the main actors. Again, because their stunt team was mostly all Japanese guys
Wow. Okay.
that had worked on the show in Japan. They'd brought the Alpha Stunt
No
team.
kidding. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay.
So they brought the Alpha Stunt team from Japan to work on the show in the States. And again, they needed a token white guy because usually they just throw a wig on their Japanese guy to double. But we got there's Reuben, and he speaks Japanese, and he's been on the, he understands our style of action.
Yeah, of course.
So we don't need to put a wig on anybody. We can just throw Reuben down the stairs.
Right.
How amazing
Always
to
goes
go
back.
from this state of okay, I don't feel that I'm good enough to be able to go back to the States and get work there because it's so competitive.
Yeah.
But then you manage to do all this work where now you have this skill set that no one in the States
Yep.
has.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And on top of that, he went from being a shy guy to wanting
Oh,
and
I know,
loving
man.
being
Talking
in front of the
right,
camera. So,
180 there, man.
Yeah, and
God, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was definitely because of the Hong Kong / Japanese action connections. I now I had value, and when I was in LA and Hollywood, I had sort of this experience. I could talk the talk, so to say, and
Right.
as far as being able to perform and do the moves and having that experience because it's its own language. The Hong Kong style action. At the time, it's evolved, and now Hollywood has embraced it, and you see the influence of the Hong Kong style action and everything through the Avengers and the Matrix and like everything. But it was in the time when I first went back, it was just sort of coming online in Hollywood. There were some coordinators and people who were against that kind of a style, and then it just slowly managed to make its way in, and then now a lot of the people that I was training with, and some of the people actually working on Power Rangers are now some of the bigger stunt coordinators and
no kidding,
influential, big Hollywood movies.
Super
and influential folks doing that kind of stuff. So coming from that background, yeah, I definitely had a foot in the door, so to say.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's amazing, man. Okay, so you're back in the States. You're doing that stuff now. You did Power Rangers, did martial law.
Oh yeah, so how do we get into mocap, right? So so sort of simultaneously while I was working with the Jackie and Samuel in those teams, I was still had my connections here in Japan, and a good friend of mine who I actually met on set, Japanese guy, Takuya Shibata, who I met on one of the Hong Kong film sets. He was working as an assistant to a movie called Project B, which was a Japanese Hong Kong co-production. It was Golden Harvest's last film.
No kidding.
Before they closed the studio, and then they just did distribution. It was their last No
kidding.
So it was sort of historical to go into the Golden Harvest Studios to see where Bruce Lee had done some of his stuff and be able to walk through that area before they shut it all down in '97. But I had befriended him, and we'd been talking about productions and films and filmmaking and how we want to do things, take things a different direction, and work with passionate people, and we were sort of trying to figure out how to get some projects off the ground. He had a good friend, Shotaro, who was a writer. They went to school together, who then went on to become a very famous writer for games. I think he even wrote the Devil May Cry 4 script, maybe, as well as anime. He did the Ghost in the Shell anime series. Cool. But at the time, we were all sort of thinking, okay, how can we make some cool projects? So we formed a company together, and it was called Just Cause Productions. And we were trying to get projects under our belt, because without experience, nobody would take us seriously. Right. So through us just hustling and bustling, trying to figure out, how can we just get whatever project we wanted to, or whatever we could get to just get the experience. Yep. We put up a proposal. I had worked on Resident Evil Code Veronica as an actor, performer, motion capture performer, and I did the motion capture for Chris Redfield. And when we did it at the Sega studios in Tokyo. Okay. And I was the only foreigner. Everybody else was Japanese. And the director, Sato-san, wanted me to do all my lines in English. Because she said, ultimately, this is going to be released in English only. So it just makes sense to do your lines in English. Right. And I said, okay, that's great, but what about the other actors? Right. They're all speaking Japanese. Yep. How are we going to interact and do things? And I had to teach the other actors, like, my last word in English. Like, okay, when I say this word, then that's your cue to do your dialogue. And it was this very inorganic, very katai, right? Experience. This very stilted. Yeah. And I had remembered that experience, and I'm like, man, why are, and then many other, we saw, my partner and I, we saw a lot of, I was big into the games at the time, and still, and saw that there was this sort of, what I call, I don't know if you guys know the movie Gunhead.
I do not.
I've never heard of that one.
Okay, so this is a late 80s bad live action movie based on a manga, produced in Japan. Okay. And they cast this up. They cast all mostly American cast. Okay. And I think they hired all of the actors out of Japan, local Japan actors, like English teachers,
right,
who didn't really
never
have
acted
a whole
before.
lot of acting experience. and they had them all speak English. Only the Japanese actors all spoke Japanese.
Okay, it's one of
And,
those.
and they
It's like Star Wars.
and then they subtitled it and they talked to each other as if they understood each other, but
Yep.
they really didn't understand
Star
each
Wars.
other,
Right.
Like Star Wars. So that was Resident Evil Code Veronica. Right?
Interesting. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. When you're doing that.
And I said, okay, well that didn't work there. That didn't work in Gunhead, and it didn't. I don't. To me, it didn't. That's it. That's it. Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at a picture. So it's Gunhead with no A.
Oh right. Yes, yes, yes.
Oh yeah.
So there's the manga is actually pretty good, but the movie is horrible. And so then what happened? Oh, so I saw a lot of these games, Metal Gear, you know, other games where they go into the cutscenes, and it was clearly Japanese performers doing good performances, but then dubbing them into English afterwards. And I call it sort of the kung fu movie, also the Gunhead effect, but also like kung fu movies where the dubs are sort of
The overdub later.
not matching with the
Right.
physical movements. And I talked to my partner and I said, hey, to get experience in projects, why don't we pitch to some of the game companies that we can actually hire actors out of LA and cast and then bring them over to Japan to do the motion capture, as opposed to
Interesting.
doing it the Japanese actors with then dubbing over.
Right.
And that way, if we did the mocap, this was before full performance capture.
Right,
so
right,
this was-
right.
We still did the ADR separately. And I said, but if we did we were actually pitching sort of full performance.
Yep.
Right.
Back then, saying if we can use the same actor and do the voice and do the
Yep.
do the physical acting, then it'll have a more realistic, a more movie-like effect. You know, let's try to get as close to the movie experience
Right.
as possible. So we put up a proposal and we took it and we started pitching to various game companies, and had a buddy at Namco at the time. You guys probably know Yanagi Hara-san.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So he was at Namco, and then he moved to Lynx Digiworks, and then we gave him the proposal, and he's like, "Well, I'm no longer with Namco, but at Lynx we see a lot of different game companies, and we can pitch this to. Actually, we're working with Capcom on a project. Maybe we can pitch it to them." And I said, "Sounds great." So we pitched to Capcom, and the first game, they liked the proposal, and they said, "Well, let's give you guys a chance for." Resident Evil Outbreak.
Outbreak. Okay.
Yes. So they had already done the bulk of the capture, so it was sort of like 3 days of pickup shit.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
And they had already gone with a Canadian company to do the voices.
Right.
Mhm.
But they said, well, let's do
It's like a trial. kind of thing,
let's
yeah.
do the casting out of the States, and let's see if we could do this. And so my partner and I sort of head up the casting and found some actors out in LA and brought them over, got their visas, and did the whole thing. And they were like, great, that worked out really well. We have another game that's just in the works, and it's called Devil May Cry. And Reuben, by the way, you look kind of like Dante. Would you want to audition for the role? And I'm like, hell yeah, of course. So so we ended up doing auditions for Devil May Cry
Crazy.
3, and recommended Yuji for the cinematic directing, because I was working with him in the action world, and I'm like, this guy's got some talent. You guys need to keep it, because I guess Capcom had asked, do you guys know any good cinematic directors, and we've got these cutscenes, and recommended Yuji, and casted it, and I think I auditioned personally 3 times for the role.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Of Dante. And then finally they're like, yeah, we want to go with you. And that was sort of our foot in the door. The Outbreak stuff, but in the mocap scene. So
Right.
simultaneously, while I was doing all the live action stuff in Japan in the States with the stunts and Jackie and all that stuff, we were sort of doing these mocap gigs, and then that started expanding and getting bigger and bigger. And then, after Devil May Cry 3, they were like, well, that worked. Let's do 4. Great. And then the Resident Evil 5 came up, and they were like, can you guys handle that? And sure. And then 6, and and it's just been going ever since.
Yeah.
So
Man,
Cool.
the idea, I could really go down a rabbit hole here. But the idea of, okay, we're gonna take actors from LA. We're gonna take high quality actors from LA, and we're gonna put them in your cutscene. They're all gonna act in English. It must have been such a revolutionary thought at the time because
for Japan,
for Japan, obviously, yeah. I mean, their actors, from what I understand, like especially their mocap actors, their mocap actors are more stage actors. They have more experience on stage, and so when you have I don't know, kabuki or no or whatever, like when they're on stage,
right?
they exaggerate, right?
They have to because
exaggerate.
they need to appeal to the person furthest in the back, right? To make sure that their movements are there.
And for like a mocap for a game, like that's not the kind of performance you want, I would assume.
It's somewhere in the middle actually, especially back in like 3 and Devil May Cry 3 and the older PS2 games, because we didn't have the facial details that we have right now.
Right.
So there was, and they were more anime-esque characters, Metal Gear and that kind of stuff. So we would look for, so when I put together the casting teams for these auditions, I looked number one, I only picked actors that I trusted because we were bringing them to Japan.
Right.
And it was as a company, and you guys know in Japan, face is everything. So if you if I'm responsible for bringing somebody over, and if that person does something, that I'm still responsible for them bringing them over.
Yep.
In Japan, they don't see the difference. They don't see, well, that person screwed up, and it's okay, Reuben. It's not your fault.
Right.
I would be held 100% responsible for whoever I brought over.
It reflects on you.
Yeah. So we made sure that whoever I brought to the audition were trusted actors that I had sort of either directly worked with or actors who come strongly recommended through people who I can trust. Say, okay, this person's you're not gonna be stuck in Japan with this person, and they're not gonna flake on you, and they're not gonna do anything. So that was like number one. Number two is I sort of went after people who either had more stage performance experience or Power Ranger type experiences. People who could physically move and physically do things. Okay. Because again, right now we have better technology, we have other things. It's easier to double and do that. But back in the day, to swap out performers for stunt doubles, it was a bit harder to do. Yeah. There becomes a lot more data pipeline work at the end, splicing and mixing the data and that stuff. That right now that process has become a lot easier. But back in the day, it was like we just want the performer to be able to do everything if they can. That's going to be less work for the animators. Yep. So so I had sort of my talent pool of Power Ranger casts that I had worked with, and they were sort of used to that little bit overacting type, not quite stage level, but stage-esque performances. And if we needed them to take a fall and do something not too heavy, we could, for the really, really big stuff, we could have a stunt guy. But it just, everything blends better if you have a performer that's more physical, that can do more than let's say just a face for like TV actors who just are faces. So those were sort of the key points we were looking for when casting.
Man, that's really interesting.
And our pitch to the Japanese companies is that we take responsibility. We will handle it all. And that was sort of their biggest fear, is they didn't, for them, they wanted to go to LA and cast. But if they went directly to LA and hired a casting director out there, they'd charge them an arm and a leg. They wouldn't know they wouldn't know Japanese customs. They wouldn't know how to cater and take full responsibility and sort of say, yes, we are,
Yeah, you guys became the one-stop shop.
We became,
definitely.
And if we mess up, you can take our pinky. And
So, let me check both your hands here.
Yeah.
We're doing
okay. We're wearing gloves, so we don't know.
Looks like you did okay by Capcom and Namco so far.
My partner is not so lucky, but no.
Nah, no, Shibata-san. He's a good guy. He's a real good guy.
Yeah.
Man, okay, that's crazy. And so, for Capcom, you worked on these Namco games, you worked on Capcom games. I mean, here we are, DMC5. Obviously, you worked on that.
Yeah.
Super
grateful.
Did the voice and mocap for Dante. Did you do any of the stunt stuff?
Not as much this time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yuji brought in his team, and again, like I said, the technology has gotten easier to do the doubles and stuff.
Yep.
So, and I think Yuji, in when we did 3 and 4, it was definitely more stunt heavy. And this time, I think Yuji, we were on a little bit of a tight schedule and stuff, where Yuji can bring in his guys and sort of work with them,
Right.
and pre-plan with them, where we were literally flown. So this one, I stepped down from the producer role. On the others 3 and 4, and I was always involved in the producing. So this time I was literally just an actor, and came in with the other actors, and it was come in, do your acting, and go back home.
Yeah.
So, which was fine, and I'm super grateful. And just looking at some of the cutscenes, oh my god,
Right?
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, man. Everybody's
Cool.
done a lot of hard work on that stuff,
Yeah.
man. It looks pretty good.
Absolutely.
But
good,
and I know you did Ken for Street Fighter, right?
yeah. So that's another blessing that came out of nowhere. That I auditioned through another separate company, not Just Cause. New Generation. They called me up and asked me to come to an audition, and I remember just going to the audition, sort of wetting my pants. Sorry for the Dante fans out there, but I'm a huge Street Fighter fan. From back in the day, that was part of my inspiration for coming to Japan. Just playing hours and hours at 7-Eleven.
Oh yeah, Pizza Parlor or whatever you get your hands on.
At the shopping malls in Atlanta, and I would go around with buddies, and we'd go and try to find competition, right? Because we would sort of rule our little areas.
Oh man, that's hardcore.
We went
the Street Fighter gangs in Atlanta.
Street Fighter gangs.
Yeah.
That's right.
Back when you put the quarter up on the
screen.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. That my time next.
That's my next.
Yeah.
That's my quarter, man.
My quarter. Yeah.
So when I went to the audition, I'm like, oh, this is for Street Fighter 4, right? So it was the first time in a while a Street Fighter game had been produced.
Yep.
And I remember auditioning for Guile, Ken, and Dan.
Nice.
And just going to the audition, I was like super giddy.
Right.
And then they're like, you got the role of Ken. I'm like, oh,
nice.
Smokes, wow.
Nice.
And that's again another one of those dreams come true.
Even I was watching the first Wreck-It Ralph over the weekend.
Yeah.
And you did a little bit in that, right?
A little cameo in that. It was fun too.
That's cool. It was so cool, man. I love that.
Oh, right. I just watched that this weekend as well.
Right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
now that you mentioned it,
at the beginning, when they have the SF2 machine,
That's
and
right.
they shut the arcade down, and then Ken and you, they stop fighting, and then you say, "All right, let's go grab a beer."
Yeah, let's go Tappers. Let's go to Tappers.
Let's go to Tappers. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that we recorded. They brought me in like 3 times to record.
Wow, just to do like
a couple lines.
Yeah.
Right.
And they kept changing it, and like, hey, can you come in again? And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
So Ken is making the
That's
rounds,
really cool,
and
man.
he was just announced in Super Smash.
That's right.
So,
Did you do his voice? Or I don't know if we should talk about that. I don't know if we can talk about that. Whether he's done the voice or not.
Yeah, well, it's obvious.
And Nintendo NDA, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. I actually checked. I said, can I announce? Can I say?
Right.
I mean, because the NDAs are so.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So it's
You
like,
know how that goes.
even though the game's been announced and clearly
You're not
it's my
supposed
voice.
to talk about
and-
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
We know.
But I sent an email, got confirmation. Yes, you
Right.
can say you're in the game.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
man.
cool.
That's as
Well, there
far
you
as
go.
I could say.
That's great. No, that's good enough.
They
That's
got
really
the
cool,
ends,
man.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you're doing. I mean, you did the Smash work and stuff. I guess these days, then, I mean, are you still focusing mainly on doing voice work, on doing mocap stuff still, and acting in other venues, or are you doing something completely different these days?
Well, I'm doing all of that. Continue to do all that sort of as the opportunities come. Definitely will not say no. And in addition to, I've been producing documentaries.
Cool.
And directing, producing, and got a series coming out on the Gaia Network in January, and just sort of following another offshoot passion of mine, investigative journalism kind of thing, and doing documentary work and filming. In Kyoto, I was just saying I picked up a drone and been doing a lot of drone filming, and then now I guess that's been picking up as a side job. So I'm like selling stock footage.
Oh, nice.
With
That's
like,
awesome.
I mean,
my drone
I
work,
love
so.
what you do. I'm jealous in a way because I
Yeah.
can't just like pick up and,
You know?
especially now, just pick up and say, you know what, today I'm going to try something completely different.
Right.
And that's really, in a way, inspiring to hear.
Yeah.
That you're just able to say, you know what, I'm going to try this now, and you
Right,
do it,
right.
and you somehow make it work.
That's
Which is
amazing.
really cool.
It's amazing.
It's I don't know if it's divine guidance or whatever it is, but I'm just sort of like on a path, and it opens up. Of course, I've had rough
Sure.
spots, and we all go through ups and downs. But yeah, it seems like when one door closes, another one sort of opens. And yeah, I'm getting a little bit older, and not. I still feel physically really
Sure.
good. Working with Yuji on a TV show.
Cool.
In what is it? Is that Toby Tokyo? It's I forget the name of it. It's a Shogatsu special.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. It's a
sweet.
year-end special then.
Year-end
Yeah,
special.
yeah.
For the New Year in Japan season, and doing some action,
Cool.
stunt, just showing up as a bad guy.
Oh, cool.
Pulling out a sword and doing some stuff.
Yeah,
So
let us know what channel that's on so we
Yeah,
can
it's
watch
fun to watch it.
it.
I think that's also TV Tokyo.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So so still doing that stuff, but I've noticed because Yuji was like, okay, so we're gonna have you do this, and you're gonna get pushed, and you're gonna fall down the stairs, and I'm like, okay, it's been a while since I've fallen down the
Yeah,
stairs. I was like,
this is a constant theme. The
Yeah.
falling down the stairs.
so it's like, I didn't, all my pads are back in the States. I was like,
Right.
Yuji, can I borrow some pads?
Yeah.
You don't expect me to fall down the stairs like
Padless.
padless like back when my young days.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
maybe I, just throw me down the stairs and sure I could take it. But, I'm kind of like, and he's like, yeah, no problem. We'll pad you up. And then we're getting closer to that scene. I'm like getting ready. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to dread. It's been a while.
This is gonna hurt.
It's been a while since I've fallen down the stairs. Do I have to really fall down the stairs? Okay, wait. It's okay. I can do this. And then we get to that scene, and he's like, he changes it up so I don't have to fall down the stairs.
Oh,
I think
okay.
he saw the worry in my face.
Yeah.
I was like, thank you, Yuji.
That helps when you're
So-
when you're friends with the director.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. But no, if I still had to fall down the stairs, I'd fall down the
Sure.
stairs.
I know.
But it's nice to know that I don't have to fall down the stairs to make a living.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
I can fly a drone, or I can go
Yeah.
Yeah.
do some mocap. This is why I love mocap, is because I think one of the reasons, like all my stunt buddies my age they're done. Like they're
Okay.
as a stunt person,
Right.
they're now into coordinating or
Sure.
into
Yeah.
directing or something else.
Makes
Physically, they just can't do it. And I
Right.
feel grateful for my getting into the mocap world all these years, because in the mocap land, we get to put pads down. We're doing some dangerous stuff with
Right.
wires and things like that. But the wear and tear on the body, I think, has been way less on me compared to my buddies who've done car hits,
Right.
falling down
Oh,
the
man.
stairs like
Yeah.
every week.
Right.
So just that constant hard hitting wear and tear for those guys has been, I can see it. You can see it in
Right.
their physical bodies and what they're doing now. Where I feel I still got a couple stair falls. I can still do it if I needed to, but
Right.
obviously we try not to do that, and put some pads down, or let's go do that in mocap, and then
Yeah.
we can
Right.
just,
Yeah,
Right.
you,
you
gotta,
know,
you can
I
fake
can
it to an extent.
pretend to
Let's
fall
get
down
some
the stairs.
wires and
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's way easier.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Cool.
I think from a time perspective, we're running out of time here, aren't we?
Yeah, I
We
think
got other
we're
stuff
gonna have to
going on.
wrap it up. I mean, we could probably talk
I know.
with you all
Okay.
day. But no, thanks so much for coming and
Yeah,
talking with us. I mean,
thank
that was
you.
super interesting. I knew a little bit of your past as we've talked before, but that was really detailed. So it was really cool. I hope the fans enjoy it. I'm sure they will.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, is there anywhere that the fans can reach you? Do you
Oh, yeah.
have a Twitter account or anywhere?
Yeah, Twitter, Reuben Langdon, my website, reubenlangdon.com. It's all one word. Pretty active on Facebook, Reuben Langdon again. I have two accounts. I have like a public profile and then the private. The private is maxed out. This was before, I got it before they did the public account. So I just
Oh, okay.
accepted everybody as all the fans as friends.
Right.
And now it's like, it is what it is. But you can subscribe to all that and get all the news and greatest updates and things like that.
Sweet.
Cool.
And my Instagram, which is sort of more just sort of my drone work.
Oh, neat.
Oh, cool.
And
didn't know that.
photography and that kind of
Okay.
stuff. I don't post much industry stuff, but just sort of my artistic side.
Cool. I'll check it
and
out.
That's also Reuben Langdon. So all my social media is just Reuben
Well,
Langdon.
keep it simple. That's
Nice,
smart.
he's
Yeah.
remember. Nice.
And
Very
who are
cool.
you? Or what's your name?
My name's Matt.
I mean, on Twitter.
On Twitter, they call me Gypsy Otoko.
That's what they call you.
That's what
Or
they
you
call
call
me.
yourself.
Mainly, it's me. I call myself that. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And
How about you?
Well, you can find me at P Fabiano. I keep it simple as well.
There you go.
And thanks everyone for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show, and keep tuning in and tell your friends. Thanks a lot. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.